My daughter told me I would get nothing. Then just minutes later, my husband's lawyer called to say my grandmother left me $2 million, along with a letter exposing all their lies. I stood frozen in the kitchen, phone pressed to my ear, my hands shaking with a mixture of disbelief and an unexpected spark of anticipation. The story you are about to hear is a work of fiction created by the Her Chains Channel team, based on real-life situations to convey lessons about family, emotions, and human values. All characters and events are illustrative. My name is Elena Caldwell. I had been finishing up my late-night shift at the small Portland diner where I worked evenings. The smell of fried food and cleaning detergent still clung to my hands as I slid my phone from my apron pocket. The text from my daughter lit up the screen. "You get nothing." I read it 3 times. My thumb hovering over the message like touching it would make it disappear. For a moment, I wanted to drop the phone, to let it shatter on the tile floor, but instead, I pressed it to my chest and let the words sink in. Years of trying to belong, of bending and shrinking myself to fit a family that had never truly welcomed me, felt like a slow unraveling. Every sacrifice, every effort, every holiday spent hoping for a scrap of affection, all of it reduced to this single, brutal line of text. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just let the shock settle into a hollow ache in my chest. And yet, beneath the weight of betrayal, a spark of curiosity flickered. How could it be that after all these years, the very person I thought I would trust most had decided I was worth nothing? Then my phone vibrated again. Unknown number. I answered before I could talk myself out of it. Only minutes after my daughter's message made my pulse quicken. I swiped to answer. A calm, authoritative voice spoke. "Elena, this is your husband's lawyer. He left you $2 million, and there is a letter you need to see." I gripped the edge of the counter, my legs suddenly heavy. $2 million and a letter. Everything I thought I knew about my family and my place in it was about to shift. And for the first time in decades, I felt like the world might actually be tilting in my favor. I kept the phone to my ear, because whatever came next was already moving. The phone buzzed again before I could even set it down. Unknown number. I usually ignored calls like that, but I answered. Made my pulse quicken. 1 minute after my daughter's message, the universe seemed to be holding its breath. I swiped to answer. "Hello?" A smooth, deep voice responded immediately. Elena Caldwell. "Yes, who's this?" My voice was flat, tired from the day, tinged with disbelief. "My name is Arthur Sterling. I'm your husband's attorney. I have information you need to see." I gripped the counter. "Information about what?" "About your inheritance." I laughed nervously. My daughter just told me I'm getting nothing." Sterling's tone stayed calm, unshaken. "That message matters. Your grandmother anticipated it. Only then can I fulfill my instructions." "What instructions?" I whispered, my chest tightening. He paused, deliberate. "Your husband left you $2 million, along with a letter detailing truths your family preferred stayed hidden. I'm here to deliver both." The words hung in the air. $2 million, a letter exposing their lies. My fingers tightened around the phone. "Are you serious? I assure you," he said. "Everything is legitimate. Your grandmother wanted you to have this, and I am bound to follow her directions exactly. You will understand when you see the documents." I leaned against the counter, trying to steady my racing heart. After decades of feeling powerless, of being overlooked and dismissed, a sliver of something sharp and alive cut through the haze. "Where do we meet?" I asked. "I'm at the diner," he said simply. "Booth 4. Turn around." I froze. My pulse spiked. My life had shifted in a single moment, and this quiet man in a suit was the key. I turned slowly toward booth 4. A man in a charcoal suit sat upright, a phone still pressed to his ear, but his eyes locked on me the moment I looked up. His silver hair glinted under the diner lights. Immaculate, deliberate. I froze for a heartbeat. "Sit," he said, not rising. The authority in his voice made me hesitate, then comply. "I'm Arthur Sterling," he said once I lowered myself into the seat across from him. "I was your grandmother Beatrice's personal attorney for 30 years. I swallowed. My grandmother, yes. The estate's conditions required a final notice to be delivered only after certain claims were made. Your husband told me there was nothing left for you. He said she died in debt. He was wrong." I blinked. My hands rested on the sticky laminate table. I don't understand." Sterling opened a thick, heavy leather portfolio and slid it toward me. The weight of it made my chest tighten. "Inside," he said, "you'll find the will, letters, bank statements, property deeds, everything she intended for you." I hesitated, fingertips brushing the edge. Everything. He confirmed. "She knew your father and daughter would act first. She waited for this moment. She wanted you to see that you were never forgotten, even if they made you feel invisible." I took a shaky breath and opened the portfolio. The first thing I saw was a letter in familiar handwriting, crisp and deliberate. Then the paper's bank statements, a list of properties, the will itself. Each document a testament to careful planning, to a grandmother's foresight, to a legacy I had been told I would never receive. Sterling watched silently, hands folded, his eyes alert but calm. "Everything is legally valid. Trusts were established, and the assets are ready for you to claim. I'm here to ensure it's carried out exactly as she instructed." I lifted my eyes from the documents. The disbelief in my chest battled with something sharper, a spark of hope I hadn't felt in decades. The truth was finally in my hands, and I could feel its weight pressing against the emptiness left by betrayal. I lifted the first envelope. Creamy paper, thick and firm under my fingers. My grandmother's handwriting curled across the front in loops I hadn't seen in decades. I traced it carefully, feeling a pulse of something familiar. "Open it," Sterling said softly, eyes steady on mine. I unfolded the letter. The words at the top made my chest tighten. "My dearest Elena, if you are reading this, then I am gone, and the time is right." My hands shook slightly, but I read on. She wrote of my mother, Sarah, and the truth that had been hidden for 22 years. She had not abandoned me. She had saved me. When I was 2, a fire broke out in our apartment. Sarah could have escaped safely, but she ran back into the nursery, wrapping her small body around mine. She took the smoke, the heat, everything, so I could live. Tears stung my eyes. I swallowed hard, the letter trembling in my hands. I had lived believing my mother left me, that she had been unstable, that her death was my fault somehow. None of it was true. Sterling cleared his throat quietly. "Keep reading. There is more you need to understand." I did. The letter detailed my daughter's resentment, the way she saw me as a mirror of my mother. Every anger, every jealousy, every cruel word was born of fear and comparison. Not truth. My grandmother had watched, had known, had planned. She anticipated every move, every slight, and left me prepared. I unfolded photographs from the portfolio. There I was in the arms of my mother, laughing, safe. Another photo showed my daughter with her arms crossed, her expression already set in that familiar hardness. I whispered, barely audible, "All this time." Sterling leaned back, hands folded. "She left you everything, Elena, every penny, every asset. She trusted you to claim it when the moment was right. The letter was her final lesson. You are never invisible." Something in me shifted quiet, irreversible. Anger, clarity, recognition. I was not small. I was not forgotten. I sifted through the portfolio, pulling out a photograph that made my stomach twist. My daughter, frowning at the camera, and beside her, my mother. In an older photo my grandmother had kept. The resemblance hit me like a punch. My daughter had hated me because I was the mirror of the woman she envied and feared. Sterling's voice broke my thoughts. Elena, the documents confirm everything. Every story your daughter and husband told about your mother being unstable, addicted, absent. It's false, fabricated. I gritted my teeth. All those years, all the times she said I was just like my mother. It was a lie. It was a narrative to control you, he said softly, placing a folder gently in front of me. Your mother's courage, her choices, were twisted into excuses to make you feel small. They needed you diminished to feel safe in their version of reality. I picked up the mirror-like photograph again. My mother's eyes, my own, staring back. Rage coiled inside me, but beneath it, relief washed through. I was not worthless. I had been lied to, manipulated, diminished, but the truth was finally here. Sharp and undeniable. Sterling leaned back. You're free to act, Elena. You have everything you need to reclaim what's rightfully yours. For the first time in decades, the lies no longer held power over me. The past had shadowed me long enough. Sterling leaned forward, tapping a sheet of paper. Elena, your family has been preparing for this inheritance as if it were already theirs. I frowned. Preparing. Yes, he said calmly. They assumed, speculated, spread rumors. They spent aggressively, beyond their means. He slid the document across the table. A new luxury SUV, $78,000. Financed at 12% interest. A pool and patio renovation, $50,000. A kitchen remodel, $40,000. Designer wardrobes. Vacations and lifestyle expenses, $36,000. My stomach twisted. They were already counting on money that was never theirs. Sterling tapped the portfolio. They calculated you wouldn't be in the picture. They wanted to feel secure, thinking the assets were theirs. Instead, every purchase, every borrowed dollar only exposes their miscalculations. I let out a bitter laugh, shaking my head. All this, for what they were so certain. Certainty breeds arrogance, Sterling said. And arrogance is fragile. They set themselves up for the consequences of their assumptions. Soon, they will learn how fragile it really is. I stared at the papers. Their greed, their false confidence, their delusions. They'd walked themselves right into my hands without realizing it. The scales were tipping, and I could feel the shift beginning. Sterling placed the will on the table, the weight of the parchment pressing against my hands before I even touched it. Elena, this is the document that confirms everything your grandmother intended. Every asset, every dollar, every instruction is legally binding and ready for execution. I nodded, my pulse quickening. My daughter had told me I would get nothing. My husband had remained silent, confident I had been excluded. Now, the truth sat heavy before me. Sterling cleared his throat. We'll start with your grandchildren, Tyler and Kayla. Tyler leaned forward eagerly. How much? $6,000 each? Sterling said evenly. The room fell silent. Tyler's eyebrows shot up. 6,000? You mean 600,000? Sterling shook his head. No. $6,000. Calculated fairly based on hourly visitation at the hospital, appearance fees, nothing more. A flush of anger spread across my daughter's face, but Sterling continued. Robert and Brenda, your father and stepmother, receive nothing. Zero. Brenda's hands tightened into fists. That's impossible. She can't do this. We're her family. Sterling's voice remained calm, but firm. You are correct that you are family in one sense. But your grandmother's instructions are explicit. Elena inherits the remainder of the estate, cash reserves, investment portfolio, intellectual property rights, a total of $2 million. The words landed like a hammer. $2 million. My daughter's jaw dropped. My husband looked pale, staring at the floor as if the words themselves could not touch him. Brenda's voice rose, sharp and wild. This is fraud. You manipulated her. Arthur Sterling ignored her, his eyes on me. Everything has already been transferred to a trust in Elena's name. The assets are hers to claim, legally. This is complete. Practically. This is the moment she steps into her inheritance. I felt the room tilt. Power shifting from those who had tried to control me to me. I did not smile. I did not gloat. But inside, a current of satisfaction surged. Decades of dismissal, of insults, of being told I was nothing, all of it had just been overturned in a single, precise moment. The disbelief on their faces confirmed it. The balance of power had changed. Sterling tapped the final document, his calm demeanor unshaken by the chaos around us. There's one more item, Elena. Your grandmother anticipated everything. She purchased the mortgage on the Whitehaven estate through a trust 6 months ago. I blinked, gripping the edge of the table. The mortgage. Yes, legally. You are now the holder of the note. Your father and Brenda are 90 days behind on payments. They are in default. Brenda spun around, voice high-pitched and frantic. What? That's impossible. You can't. This house is ours. Sterling's tone remained measured. The law is clear. The trust owns the note. And you, Elena, are the beneficiary. You control the property until the debt is resolved. Robert sank into the chair, head in his hands. We can't pay that. We don't have enough. Please. I felt a cold current of control settle through me. Please what? Dad, beg me to let you stay. I can do that, or I can let the law run its course. Brenda's hands shook as she pointed at me. You think this is victory. You're cruel. I leaned forward, eyes steady. I'm fair. You can stay, but the terms are mine. Full market rent, on time, or the eviction process begins immediately. Tyler swallowed audibly. How much? Sterling answered, without hesitation. $8,500 per month, plus utilities and property maintenance. Payment is due on the 1st. Late even a single day, the lease is void. I let their silence stretch. The arrogance and certainty that had defined them for decades had evaporated. The house, the mortgage, the power, they were mine. I didn't gloat. I just looked from Brenda's panicked eyes to my father's pale face. For decades, I had been the powerless one. Now, every move, every breath, every ounce of authority in that house belonged to me. I had the key, literally and legally, and for the first time, I felt the full weight of it. I leaned back, letting the reality settle in. I could have called the sheriff, started eviction proceedings immediately, and watched them scramble for every dollar they'd assumed would be theirs. Instead, I wanted control, precision. You can stay, I said, my voice calm, measured. You'll sign a standard 12-month lease, full market rent, due on the 1st of every month. Utilities and property maintenance included. Late even a single day, the lease is void. Lease. Brenda's hands trembled as she whispered, You're humiliating us. I met her gaze evenly. I'm offering you a choice: leave with nothing, or stay and pay for the privilege of living in the home you built with borrowed confidence. Tyler swallowed audibly. We can manage that. Sterling nodded from his seat. The terms are enforceable, every dollar accounted for. The trust and lease are legally binding. Robert looked up, voice barely audible. We don't have that kind of money. Please? I shook my head slowly. Then sell the boat. Sell the luxury SUV, find jobs. The rules are clear. You built this house thinking you'd inherit. Spent recklessly. Assumed security. Now you pay for it on my terms. Brenda's lips quivered. You think you've won, I don't think. I know. Silence filled the room. Their panic simmered beneath the surface, mingling with disbelief. I could have destroyed them in an instant. But the satisfaction in watching them struggle to adapt, to acknowledge their miscalculations, felt colder, sharper, more complete. I didn't need to shout. I didn't need to gloat. Control, precision, and justice served exactly as intended were enough. I slid into the driver's seat of my old sedan, the leather cracked and familiar beneath my hands. The lease signed, the trust established, the house secured under my control. For the first time in decades, I felt the weight on my shoulders lift. I dialed the bursar's office at the nursing school. This is Elena Caldwell. I'd like to pay my outstanding tuition balance in full. Of course, the clerk replied. How much would you like to pay today? All of it, I said, handing over the routing information from the trust account Sterling had set up. Relief. Tangible and immediate, lifted with each confirmation. Every payment, every debt I'd carried since I was 18, erased in one swift, deliberate move. Later, I drove to the cemetery where my grandmother Beatrice rested. The grass was frost-covered, and I brushed off a few dead leaves before placing the copy of the lease against her headstone. They signed it. Grandma, I whispered softly. You were right. They chose the cage. I lingered there longer than necessary, just breathing. Her foresight had given me more than money. She'd given me clarity, a roadmap through betrayal and deceit. And finally, the freedom to claim my own life. Back in the car, I scrolled through my contacts list, passing the names that had defined my trauma dad, Brenda, Tyler, Kayla. 4 taps of the delete key severed ties that had bound me to a lifetime of anger and resentment. I didn't feel anger anymore. I felt clean, unburdened, liberated. $2 million had changed the practical reality, yes, but more important was the lesson it carried. Power, justice, and self-respect are earned, claimed, and protected, not begged for. I drove out of Portland, the road wide and open before me. For the first time, I could go anywhere, make any choice, live my life on my terms. If you had the power to reclaim what's yours and rewrite your story, would you take it or let it slip by? Like this video if you believe that the truth and courage always pay off, even when the world doubts you. I miss